Welcome to another segment of In Another Opinion, a public information program where our discussions are focused on the communities of color in the state of Rhode Island. I'm your host, Peter Wells. Today's guests, Marta Martinez and Orlando Hernandez, both of the Rhode Island Latino Arts.
Right.
Tell me, Marta, what is Rhode Island Latino Arts all about?
Rhode Island Latino Arts is an organization. It's a statewide organization, and we promote the Latino arts of Rhode Island, all kinds of arts. We do visual, theater, performing. We even do culinary arts and literacy.
Where are you located?
We have an office in Providence. We're at the Southside Cultural Center, and I'm also at in Central Falls. We just opened a cultural center in Central Falls.
Very good. And is that a big building in Central Falls, or?
It's a two-story house.
Very good.
So we're actually have a lot of dreams. We just had our grand opening Saturday. We've been there about a year, but we've been building it slowly, and we just had our grand opening. We have a lot of plans and dreams for that location.
Very good.
Yeah.
And Orlando, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I understand you're the Performing Arts Director. Is that the correct title?
Well, yeah, Performing Arts Programs Coordinator.
Programs Coordinator.
Yeah.
What does that mean for us?
Well, so it means that I'm kind of helping to push forward some of our initiatives having to do with theater, music, dance, and just kind of generally the performing arts, which is one of the kind of focuses that RILA has been kind of invested in the last couple of years.
And how did you come to be a programs director of arts?
Yeah, well, so I first got involved kind of as an artist, kind of working with RILA, because one of the things that RILA has done for years is promote a kind of network of working artists.
Okay.
And kind of help them with performance opportunities and connect them with organizations. And so I came into the mix that way, and then in particular working on the bilingual summer collaboration with Trinity Rep called Teatro en el Verano, Theater in the Summer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came in as an actor for that, and then over the last few years of developing that project, I kind of also started to do more of the kind of the coordinating. And so last year started in this position, helping to push forward our initiatives at RILA.
Very good. Well, Marta, how long has Rhode Island Arts been around, and who founded it? I mean, how was it founded?
Well, we're celebrating our 30 years.
30 years.
30 years, yeah. And I founded it. I moved to Rhode Island in 1988, and pretty much from the get-go just decided that after looking around that there was no organization there was no way to organize Latino artists in Rhode Island, so I just started it with a small grant from the Rhode Island State Council of the Arts.
Well, very good.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know it was around for 30 years. I've seen the logo, but I didn't realize it was around for 30 years.
It was called the Hispanic Heritage Committee. That's basically what the idea that I brought to Rhode Island. I moved here I was living in Washington, D.C. for a while, and at that time I was involved in the arts there, and it was celebrated. And so when I came here, that's what I looked for, a way to connect with the culture and the arts of Latinos. And when I didn't see one, I just started the organization.
Well, the Latino culture here in Rhode Island is very diverse.
Right.
I mean, between the Caribbean, Central America, Mexico, and you told me that your background is Puerto Rican, so from the Caribbean. How do you mesh all those different cultures together in the arts?
You want to answer that? Yeah.
Well, the arts are a good way to do it, and I think for us it's important, and for me it's important to because sometimes in certain kinds of institutions there's that tendency to kind of group all Latinos together, that just kind of like as if there's kind of one community,
right. Which we know it isn't.
We know it isn't. Yeah. So I think the key for us, I think, is to just kind of give space and for different voices and different experiences, and so. Then the arts are a good way for people to kind of bring their stories to the table. And so that means having Guatemalan artists, it means having Dominican artists, and the different forms that speak to these different types of artists too.
Is there, have you, as a director, have you noticed that depending on where the artist comes from in terms of their cultural background, is there a distinct difference in the art that they may use, the mediums, or no?
No, I think that's the myth that we want to break, is that there is a particular style, for example, in the Mexican culture and the Guatemalan and maybe Puerto Rican, one being, Central American or Caribbean. But I think what we're trying to prove is the similarities that we have to how we can blend and fuse some of those what we call individual forms of art and make it one. We learn from each other. Part of what I wanted to do is not just expose Latino arts to the broad community of Rhode Island, but to find a way that we can put the different groups together and learn from each other and grow and create art and fuse it. I like using that word because when you fuse all those 21 Latin American cultures, it becomes even richer and more beautiful.
Wow, 21, and you have 21 cultures represented in the in the program now?
Pretty much. I think we're missing a few, but almost every country, I should say. That's how many countries there are that represent Latin America, including Brazil. We have a Brazilian young man in the theater production.
Yeah, well, South America, you have to have Brazil and probably Argentina.
Right. We have pretty
Peruvian?
much everyone that I can think of, even if it's just one person. That's the beauty of what we do. We can pull in somebody and show the distinct cultures and arts from that organization or that country, but also how we can work together and create art and find the common ground. Yeah.
Well, I have to admit, I did go to your website, so I was nosing about and trying to learn a little bit more about what Rhode Island Latino Arts was about. And I noticed you had different forms that you use. You have oral histories. Can you tell me a bit about what oral history is about?
Well, the Oral History Project kind of came around the same time that I started the organization, because I come from the Mexican culture, and when I moved to Rhode Island, I was looking for that connection. I think that was also part of why I wanted to start an organization that celebrated the cultures. I wanted to connect with Mexicans, and at the time in 1988, I couldn't find any. I couldn't find any restaurants or grocery stores. And so I started talking to people and asking, who are the Latinos that live here? And I discovered that it was a rich, beautiful culture, and that there was a very important story of the Latino story, and I started collecting it. My background is in journalism, and so all the questions I had led to this oral history project that is still very much alive.
Very good. And Orlando, as the program's coordinator, tell me, where's your focus in the organization? How do you do what you do?
Yeah, so one of the focuses definitely is on theater, but theater understood broadly to really mean these kinds of all kinds of performance, really. And I think it's kind of coming from the idea that live performance is an important way to gather, to make ourselves feel present, to assert that presence towards the kind of general communities or the general public too. And so, so we've had different kinds of initiatives over the last stretch of months, like getting together to read scripts by different Latinx writers to kind of educate ourselves and kind of have material to perform. We have some different exciting kinds of workshops coming up that are in poetry and performance. We got workshops coming up with Susie Santana, who's a great poet, coming up in February, things like that. We're supporting a couple of different theater projects. There's a project by Jenny Sanchez, who's a playwright and actor. So a play that she wrote is in development right now. And then things like kind of open mics, and we got something called Noche Bohemia, which is co-sponsored by Arte Latino of New England, which is coming up in a couple weeks on Saturday the 16th. So things like that that kind of promote ways of gathering, to share music, to share theater, share stories, and kind of use that as a way to bring ourselves forward.
Yeah, where would these activities take place? In Central Falls or in Providence?
Well, so mostly these days in Central Falls at the
location.
Yeah, which is called La Galería del Pueblo, which is right on Central Street in Central Falls. But there's programming that's continuing at Southside Cultural Center as well.
Right. Yeah, we have some annual events that happen there. I started a mariachi festival in May in celebration of Cinco de Mayo. We have that there. And then in November we do Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, and we have a big celebration there. I'm also doing some walking tours of Broad Street and Cranston Street, which are related to the oral history project that I do. So a lot of the work that we do it's statewide, so we touch arts and the arts around the state, but right now it's focused on the 2 cities that have the largest Latino communities.
Yeah. Well, you know, when you mentioned the Day of the Dead, the celebration, I was actually in Mexico City one year and witnessed the celebration there, and people coming on their knees to the cathedral that was in Mexico City,
Right.
to provide offerings.
Right.
And it was mind-blowing, quite frankly, to see that. It was such dedication.
And it's, you know, it's a way the way we do Rhode Island Latino Arts is we try to teach the true meaning of some of these celebrations, and that they're not just times to party. And that's what I'm trying to prove with Dia de los Muertos, is that it's a very solemn and actually a very happy celebration. So we do go to a cemetery and we honor the deceased relatives and family members, and we do it the right way. We do have a good time also.
Yeah, and Cinco de Mayo, of course, that's been embraced by North America as a day of celebrating the Mexican culture and margaritas, of course.
Right, yeah. And it's not all about margarita.
It's not about that. It's about independence, correct?
That's exactly what we try to promote. We have a good time, but we also try to educate. Right.
Speaking of which, is the program, are you getting the program into the city school systems at all?
We have been in Central Falls. Again, we found ourselves in a community that's very high Latino, the population, and I knew that, and that was not necessarily intentional, but we knew when we had this opportunity to open a cultural center there, that was the best place, that was ideal. But we invited to go to Central Falls High School. We have also, I mentioned that we do literary arts. We celebrate the Latino Books Month. We actually started the first Latino Books Month in the Northeast. And we brought some authors and we took them to Yuyi Morales, who just won a Bural Belple Award, which is the highest honor given to a Latina author or illustrator.
Well, how would people get some of the, say, acquire some of the books and the plays and things of that nature, the written material? How would they get that?
The books, we actually promote, when the authors come, we get samples of their books and we sell them in our bookstore.
Okay.
And we promote, it's basically just a way to promote bilingual literature. It's not so much that we want to push books in particular, but it's reading and being able to use the 2 languages that with kids that they speak at home, and to learn to read them, and maybe encourage parents to read with their kids too.
Now, speaking of the language, has there been any problems at all? Not problems, but has there been challenges, let's say? Because I know that Spanish culture, Spanish varies from location to location. I mean, Colombian Spanish may be a little bit different from Mexican, maybe different from Dominican or Puerto Rican. So, you know, is there a challenge in understanding when we're talking one linguist from another?
Not necessarily. I think what we're trying to promote is that Spanish is pretty much similar, and there may be some differences in some of the words that you use. And a way that we do that is through our bilingual plays.
Okay.
We chose to do bilingual versus just Spanish or just English because there are groups of young people, as I said earlier, that live in households that are bilingual. Mm-hmm. Their parents speak Spanish, they grew up speaking Spanish, and they're starting to lose that. And they also feel comfortable in both languages, and I don't know if you want to say more about that, because Orlando was involved in helping to translate some of our plays into bilingual format. So.
Yeah, you know, because there's this range of experiences, and it has to do with kind of the experience of different generations, where sometimes the older generation will speak Spanish, the younger will speak English. Sometimes that'll kind of flip, where the older generation kind of identifies more with English because it's a language that they kind of had to learn to assimilate, whereas younger generations now are reaching back to Spanish. So it's this kind of dynamic way that we want to kind of create that conversation or embrace that conversation more than kind of kind of like legislate about what language someone should be speaking. Because I think at this point, because of all the the ways that colonialism and migration, all these things happen, we're now in this place where we have these kinds of different relationships with both languages, and it's about kind of finding dynamic ways to interact with that.
Well, it's interesting that you're in Central Falls, and I know my good friend Victor Capian, I guess he's school superintendent, I think,
Right.
and has probably opened the gateway for you to get into the school systems, along with the mayor. Jimmy's he's a pretty progressive guy himself. He's a young man. So Central Falls would you say that's the hub of the organization, or will be?
Right now it will be. Right now it is. We're drawing a lot of attention to it because we want to celebrate that this is the first Latino cultural center in the state. And that was the other thing. It seems like every time I talk, it's like the first this and the first that. But it's the Rhode Island is very ripe and very ready to celebrate its Latino cultures. And so when we do something, it's not easy, but it's also we've been welcomed with open arms. But Central Falls, I think, right now will be our focus.
Well, it's a good location, given the name itself too, in the northern part of the state being more central, and you have Pawtucket and Providence and Woonsocket, which has large Latino populations surrounding it, which is kind of a good thing.
And it's easy to get around. That's what we found. People know where we are. We don't have to give them directions. They know exactly the street and the location. So, and we've been welcomed. People are excited about having not so much a cultural center, yes, but a Latino cultural center. They know that's a big hole that we had to fill.
Yeah, it's true, because I do know that here in Providence there were people who, there was a Puerto Rican society, there was a Dominican society. There was a building, however, I think that was used at one time on the south side for activities, but it was, for the most part, I think it was the Puerto Rican society that used that building and had some parties. But then you have the parade, the Dominican parade that happens every year. Those things were going on, but they weren't focused in a cultural center.
Right. I think we work with those organizations, and we support them, but we also wanted to find ways to bridge the cultures, not just among the non-Latinos and Latinos, but among each other, right?
Has the arts portion been embraced as far as with the state arts council or city councils or whatever that focus on the arts? Are you part of that organization as well?
The Rhode Island State Council of the Arts, as I mentioned, was our first grant, and they still are. They've been supportive the whole time, and so we do get funding from the Rhode Island State Council of the Arts. We've also just received grants from the National Endowment and for the National Endowment of Humanities and of the Arts, which is very exciting, because once you get recognized federally, it's really it's a big brings an impact.
Puts you on the map, so to speak.
Exactly, yeah. They recognize that there's a need for the kind of work that we're doing, so we're very excited.
Very good. And Orlando, what's your connection with the state at this point as far as the programs are concerned?
Yeah. Well, so actually, there's something coming up March 7th. Kufa Castro and I will be leading a kind of professional development workshop that's through this new initiative started by Molly Flanagan at RISCA, at the Rhode Island State Council on the Arts. And it's this kind of peer-led professional, kind of artist skill share professional development workshops, where the idea is to have artists lead workshops that kind of give resources and tools to other artists, instead of that kind of divide that sometimes happens where it's administrators trying to kind of see things from the artist perspective. So we'll be leading a workshop at our Central Falls location, kind of geared towards Latinx bilingual artists, kind of thinking about some of the particular situations that we're in terms of kind of getting funding, applying for things. And so definitely a positive relationship with, really positive with RISCA. Yeah, excited to kind of move that forward too.
We also have a really great relationship from day one with the Providence Art, Culture, and Tourism Department.
Okay.
They recognize the need for the same thing for the Latino arts in the city, and support the idea of not only having us there, but also our move to Central Falls. They provided funding for the Southside Cultural Center, and we had a major grant from Art Place America. And there's a focus on the Trinity Square neighborhood in that Southside Cultural Center is located, and the Providence Art, Culture, and Tourism has supported not only that initiative, but it kind of planted the seed for us to start growing as an organization in Providence.
So tell me, how have young people migrated to the program? Are you attracting young people?
Yeah, well, so it's part of the outreach that we're doing right now in Central Falls and through Central Falls High School. And we're just kind of people that are, kids and young folks that are around the area, and we're trying to kind of bring them into our programming. So we're starting to have drumming classes. We actually start today, later today, with Jesus Andujar. And then we'll have we'll be building to some dance and theater classes. And that's, I think, where the physical location really helps with that, because it really is about saying this is a space, it's a safe space where kind of fun things are happening, and we really want people to kind of come in and identify with it and see it as their own space. And so that's kind of what we're in the middle of building, I would say.
And gallery?
We got a gallery too.
We had a grand opening on Saturday. That was part of the opening of the building. And right now we have an exhibition by Tamara Diaz. She's a Cuban American. Her art will be up until May 31st, and it's going to be a rolling exhibition. We're going to bring in other visual artists to show their work, and we'll always have gallery hours where people can come and look at the art. Several of the schools, there were several educators at the opening on Saturday who were very excited, and they've already talked about having field trips to bring kids.
Very good.
Again, a location where some of these Latino kids can come and spend some time and not only see the art, but get to meet the artists who create the work. It's very exciting out there.
Well, I would imagine so. And again, what's the address of the location?
It's 209 Central Street. It's in Central Falls, and we're located, Central Falls, again, is so tiny. We're a block from City Hall, and we're right next to the Adams Public Library.
Very good. Well, I know where you're located now. And mentally in my head, I've got a location. I'll have to get out to see the facility. And what goes on at Southside?
At Southside, I mainly just organize events there. I do stop in there. I have a little office there that where I spend time once a week. And what's important for me there is that the relationships that I build with some of the other cultural organizations that were or are located in there. The Rhode Island Black Storytellers, Val Tutson and I have had some initiatives where we're trying to find some bilingual storytellers who can participate in some of her programming.
Sure.
And she would help us learn some best practices of storytelling. We've also had some programming with the Laotian Community Center there with Silaphone, and with just building it's a place to build partnerships in Providence too. So I do a lot of work there. I haven't really left that location.
Yeah, well, Marta, I've known you for a lot of years, and you've always been involved as an advocate for the community in various ways, and I'm glad to see you're still doing that. And Orlando, you're new to the area. Where are you coming from?
So I grew up in Hoboken, New Jersey. And actually, I think part of why I love Central Falls, actually, is it kind of reminds me of Hoboken. But Hoboken feels different from Hoboken these days, but it's also kind of small. And yeah, so I grew up in the New York area, and then have been in the Rhode Island area since 2014. But my mom she grew up in Providence.
Oh, really? Okay, very good. So what is your key art? I'm assuming you have. Marta's a journalist. What's your background?
Yeah, so my main practice is that I'm a tap dancer, and so I make tap dance work, and then I also work in theater. I work as an actor and a writer. So kind of involved in different kind of multidisciplinary performance projects and writing projects. Yeah.
Tap dancing is a dying art, is it not, or is it still vibrant?
Well, I would say actually there are probably more tap dancers right now than ever.
Really?
It's still is kind of it's in that situation of a lot of people doing it internationally now, but we're all kind of just trying to find the right homes for it. Is some of what it is. There are tap dance festivals, and then there are tap dancers doing great work, kind of in more dance performance spaces, kind of jazz music venues, things like that. It's really kind of diverse these days. So a lot of people doing their thing, I would say.
And we found I found it interesting that Orlando's going to try to fuse dancing with drumming. And as I said, we try to find ways to bring a Latino twist to some of the art. And so when we put Jesus Andújar together with Orlando, I can't wait to see what comes out of that. It's the rhythms of the drums and the rhythms of the steps and the sounds that I think they're going to go really great. I can't wait to see that happen.
There was a movie years ago that I remember seeing where the tap dancer had somehow they put microphones, I guess, underneath the floor.
Yeah.
So that when the tapping was done, it made a larger sound, and they had the sounds of the city that were part of that performance.
It was probably the movie Tap with
It may have been
Gregory
Tap.
Hines.
Yes, it was Gregory Hines. You're absolutely right.
Oh, brilliant! I mean, it was brilliant. Yeah. No, I mean, he was someone that was always kind of that was very much kind of rooted in the elders of the tradition, but always kind of had his it was always existing very much in his time and space. So it was kind of making things like that happen.
But now, is tap found in the Spanish culture itself?
Well, not that much, and I mean, it's very much this kind of U.S. North American art form, right? But it has these beautiful, and as part of what Marta is talking about, these kind of beautiful connections and potential connections with these kind of larger African diasporic traditions that you find in the Caribbean with things like bomba, dancing and drumming.
I could see flamenco maybe to some degree.
Definitely. So I think it's part of this kind of larger kind of web of these histories and of these kind of diasporized kind of cultures and expressions that now may seem distinct, but I think kind of have a lot. They share a lot.
Very good. Well, listen, this has been exciting to hear about, and we'll have to get over to the show. I invite the viewers to get over to see. Is there any particular hours that people can come into the public?
We're going to be there limited hours, so it's going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays from 12:30 to 3:30, and on Wednesdays from 3:30 to 5:30, and then by appointment. We're always there. If anybody wants to stop in and view the visual art or just come and see the location, we'll be happy to show it to you.
Very good. Well, I'll be one of your first visitors, I'm sure. Listen, we've run out of time, but I want to thank today's guests, Marta Martinez and Orlando Hernandez, both of Rhode Island Latino Arts, and you, the viewers, for tuning in to another segment of In Another Opinion. A special thanks to PBS for making this program possible. I'm your host, Peter Wells. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and at IA Opinion. Have a great day.